Welcome to Lakers Reign, the podcast of the Los Angeles Lakers.
I feel like I'm on the ball today. I even felt exempted from the law today. It's like this revelation dawned on me. It's so amazing, help support the cause. I get everyone involved.
Get access behind the purple curtain for an exclusive look into the championship pedigree of Los Angeles, the lifestyle, the music, the vibe. Here's your host, Nick Hamilton.
Single shot of whiskey, up can make it double. All my people with me always making trouble.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of Lakers Reign, where we make it rain all over the NBA in purple and gold. I'm your host, Nick Hamilton. Thank you for tuning in to another edition of the podcast. Lots to talk about, and oh yes, you cannot forget your man, Lonzo Ball. Of course, we're going to talk about him. We're going to talk about the return of Larry Nance Jr. and his impact. We're also going to talk about Kyle Kuzma, Jordan Clarkson, and Luke Walton as head coach. We also have a special treat for you guys. We got a chance to sit down with the Warriors play-by-play announcer, Tim Roye. So he shared a lot of insight with us. He shared a lot of just historical facts when it comes to the Golden State Warriors. So we have a jam-packed show, so let's get right down to it. Obviously, the last time we saw the Lakers play, they were against their hallway rivals, the Los Angeles Clippers, the Clippers being the home team, the Lakers being the road team. And for a moment, you had an opportunity where the Lakers could have definitely won this game. The game was definitely in their grasp. Of course, on the Clippers side, you have Blake Griffin, DeAndre Jordan, Austin Rivers, the list goes on. In the fourth quarter is where the Lakers lost this game. And it wasn't because of the players on the court. You had KCP, who was doing very well. You had Kyle Kuzma, who was playing pretty well, a physical presence on the court against the Clippers. And then you also had Jordan Clarkson, who made 7 straight shots in the fourth quarter alone. He was the man with the hot hand, along with Kyle Kuzma, along with Larry Nance Jr., who needed to be a body on Blake Griffin before he was injured late in the fourth quarter. And Luke Walton decides to have the genius idea of substituting Jordan Clarkson for Lonzo Ball. Mind you, Lonzo Ball did nothing in this game. He only had 3 points. He had 4 fouls, and he finished the game, and that's why the Lakers lost. I can only imagine how frustrating that is for a guy like Jordan Clarkson who's out here playing his heart out. I mean, this is the same Jordan Clarkson who has played extremely well. He's only had 2 bad games in the stretch of November. One against the Suns, the other one against the Nuggets. So you can only imagine how frustrating this is for Jordan Clarkson, who gets pulled for no reason other than, you know what, let's substitute Lonzo Ball. When I look at this, I pay attention to the coaching strategy, because this was definitely a winnable game for the Lakers. I look at Larry Nance Jr. He missed 11 games with a hand injury. He's come back, and he's definitely been a significant presence, especially on defense. Also, too, you have a guy like Lonzo Ball, who I talked about, that scored 3 points. Yes, we know about the 2 triple doubles that he had. We already know about that. It was the last one he had was against the Nuggets. But let's also be clear about this. He averages 8.7 points per game, 7.1 assists a game, 7.3 rebounds a game. But Lonzo Ball is shooting a dismal 31% from the field. You cannot be a number 2 pick. You cannot be a point guard in this league and shoot 31%. You are shooting basically almost 43% from the free throw line. That is DeAndre Jordan numbers. You can't be like that if you claim to be a point guard. You're shooting 24.5% from three-point land, not going to get it done. Lonzo Ball has got to figure out how to get his shooting touch, if at all. As I said numerous times, and I'll continue to say it, I think he's very talented. But the lack of aggression that I saw in the game against the Clippers showed me a lot, is why the stats were what they were. And when I look at Lonzo Ball and what he could create and what he could do, he's not there yet. So if I'm head coach Luke Walton and I'm seeing the man with the hot hand, better known as Jordan Clarkson, and Kyle Kuzma contributing, And Brandon Ingram in the second half starting to contribute. KCP playing well. You have Larry Nance Jr. as a presence down there. Julius Randle. Why on God's green earth would I stop the momentum that Clarkson had? That's hustling backwards. I don't know what Luke Walton was seeing and or thinking when he made that move. But let me tell you something. It was a costly gesture. And this is why the Lakers are still behind the Clippers by half a game in the Western Conference standings, because they lost a head-to-head matchup. The ironic thing about it is Larry Nance Jr., who told the reporters after practice the other day, was that he still believes that this team could be a playoff team. And as he monitors the standings, he still feels very strongly about that. And I know it's early. I know we only played a handful of games, 20 games or so. But I still don't believe this team is a playoff team. I think they're a couple of stars away from being a serious contender and a serious playoff team. But I can't knock somebody else's dream of if they believe they're going to make the playoffs. I would love to see the Lakers make the playoffs. That would be great. I think it would be great confidence booster for the young players that are on the team currently. I think it would speak volumes going into the free agency period after the season is over to try to better market themselves to free agents about the potential that this team could have if A and B superstar would join this team. So I think the possibilities are endless if they were able to make the 8th seed. And when I look at what Larry Nance Jr. said, is he far off, or had he been drinking? I don't think he's far off. I mean, they could make a playoff run. I don't think they will, because I think the Western Conference is going to get tougher as the months progress, especially come January and February around the All-Star break. After the All-Star break is when teams really start to get in gear and really make that playoff push. And I don't think the Lakers have enough in the tank and have enough in the arsenal to be able to combat other teams like a Houston, OKC, San Antonio, or Golden State for that matter, or even Minnesota. So I think it's going to be extremely difficult for them to achieve that particular goal. But there's nothing wrong with dreaming big, because if you don't dream big, you don't belong in the game anyway. So I can't knock them for that. And Larry Nance Jr. told the reporters, he said, quote, "It's something I keep track of for sure. That's something I would love for this team. I think everybody here would love for this team to be there, and I think it's very realistic." And you had me before you said realistic, because let's be realistic. There's about 5 or 6 other teams that are better than the Lakers team. And going down the stretch, they're going to be better. At one point, I thought it was going to be the Clippers, but now that, Blake Griffin is going to be out for a significant amount of time, that just made them a possible lottery team. So you can take them off the map. Okay, that's one squad out of the Lakers' way. You still got 8 other squads that can be better than the Lakers, that have what it takes to get to that playoff pitch. And the Lakers right now simply don't have it. I'm being realistic when I say that. Again, I would love to see the Lakers in the playoffs. But realistically, we're going to use that word very strongly. I don't think it's in the cards for them this season. Like I said, next year, they get some top-notch free agents, round out their bench. I think you can definitely talk playoffs. I can absolutely see the playoffs with that. Again, going back to Jordan Clarkson, he actually told reporters after the Lakers-Clippers game, quote, "It's tough as hell, to be honest with you, because I'm a competitor. And like everybody else in this locker room, you want to be on the floor. It is what it is. I can't control nothing of what's going on." Luke put the guys he thought on the floor that are going to win the game for us. It is what it is, end quote. So you can understand the frustration, the level of frustration. He has a very valid point. Hey man, if I'm out here contributing and I'm dropping buckets and I'm on fire. Any old school fans listening, NBA Jam, he's on fire. Because that's exactly what he was. Why in the hell would you take him out? Are you trying to intentionally lose the game? Are you trying to rack up losses? And I'm not casting any aspersions on Luke Walton's strategy. I'm not saying the man is trying to purposely forfeit games or lose games or nothing like that. I'm not suggesting that at all. What I'm simply saying is it's your level and your strategy that's going to cause you to lose games like this. Winnable games that you can accomplish, you're going to lose them. It's that simple. You don't play Kyle Kuzma if he's having a hot hand. You don't play Jordan Clarkson. You don't play other guys that are getting the job done. And I'm sorry, your number 2 pick, if he's not getting the job done and he's sitting around with 3 or 4 fouls, you got to do what you got to do, Luke. I don't care what his daddies may say or don't say. I don't care if he is supposedly the face of the franchise. If your face of the franchise is not getting it done, you have to go to other measures. You're here to try to score more W's than L's. Period, point blank. So if you can't do that at a certain particular time, then maybe you need to step aside and let somebody else with more experience coach this team. Because you can't keep tricking off opportunities like this. And that's exactly what the Lakers did the other night on Monday night. They tricked off an opportunity. But they do have another great opportunity against the Golden State Warriors, whom last season at one point they beat the brakes off of them by 20 at home at Staples Center. So this team can beat the world champs. The question is, will they? And everybody wants to compare. I know LeVar Ball started the whole comparison between Lonzo and Steph Curry. But let's be clear. If you look at the tape, even after 20 games, Lonzo may have better assists. And obviously he had 2 triple-doubles. But Steph had a better shooting percentage. Steph was able to maneuver and move the ball better. And now we see what Steph has turned into, probably one of the greatest shooters we've ever seen. I don't think that's in the cards for Lonzo. And I think it's really unfair to try to compare Lonzo against Steph Curry. I think Lonzo needs to be Lonzo Ball. Play to his strengths, try to improve his weaknesses, and try to make sure that this thing that this person that you drafted pans out the way that you envisioned it. If you're Magic Johnson and Rob Pelinka. And let me tell you something. I know I've heard the quotes. I'm sure you guys out there in Lakerland have heard all the quotes what Kevin Durant said about Lonzo Ball, what Steph Curry said about Lonzo Ball. And I'm sure they're being very, very nice and they're being very generous. But are they being honest? Hell no. We all know that Steph Curry is probably going to give Lonzo Ball that work. We all know that. We all know that how Kevin Durant, when he gets into a groove, it's very hard to stop Kevin Durant. It's very hard to stop Klay Thompson. It's not easy stopping Draymond Green. And if you're the Warriors, when Steph is not on Lonzo, you put Klay Thompson on him. And you force him to shoot. I look at this matchup as, yes, I think, unfortunately, I hate to say it because I'm not a homer. I do love the Lakers. I love the purple and gold. But I gotta be realistic. As your man Larry Nance Jr. said earlier, I think the Warriors can win this game. But I do think that the Lakers can win this game. If they played the game against the Clippers, and I'm not comparing the Clippers to the Warriors, they're opposite, they're polar opposites. But what I'm saying, the same type of intensity, the same type of delivery, the same type of execution and passion that they displayed against the Clippers, especially in that fourth quarter, before the substitutions happened. If they play like that against the Warriors, there's an opportunity for the Lakers to beat the Warriors. There truly is. If Luke Walton does not mess up the chemistry, does not take guys out for the fact of just taking guys out. Because there's no rhyme or reason why you would pull Jordan Clarkson when he's dropping buckets. No excuse. So hopefully Luke learns a lesson from Monday night. And if Jordan Clarkson or Kyle Kuzma or whoever has the hot hand, leave them alone. Let them play. Let them play. They're going to have to learn somehow, some way. Let them play. Experience is the best teacher when it comes to these types of situations. So for God's sake, please let them play. The fans have been screaming it. I'm going to scream it. Hopefully Luke hears it and executes it. Leave them alone. Whoever has the hot hand, they do not need to come out. They're young. They don't need a rest. That's what TV timeouts are for. That's what timeouts are for. They don't need any more rest. They'll be okay. Trust me. So please, stop. It's ridiculous. You have this level of talent and you don't even let them finish it out. It makes no damn sense. So we'll see what happens on Wednesday night. By the time this podcast drops, we'll have a score of who won and who lost. But I will say it should be a fun and very entertaining game between the Lakers and the Warriors on Wednesday night at Staples Center, 7:30 p.m., Spectrum Sportsnet. So coming up, please sit tight and stay tuned for a very, very great interview between my producer, Pete Turner, and Tim Roye from the Warriors. He's the play-by-play. He gives all the info, all the knowledge, all the stats, and shares some very, very great historical moments from the Golden State Warriors. He's been associated with the Warriors since 1995. Some of you guys, some of you millennials weren't even born then. So imagine that. Imagine the peaks and valleys the Warriors had to go through. And remember, the Lakers were kind of riding high, starting to ride high in the late 90s, in the early 2000s. So sit back, relax, kick your feet up, pop open another one, and check out this interview with Tim Roye. Stay tuned.
Hey, thanks a lot, Nick. I can't tell you how cool this is for me to have the voice of the Warriors, Tim Roye. Growing up, watching the Warriors back in the Run TMC days, like those are my Warriors. Your voice has really solidified for me like my NBA spirit, and it's just such a cool thing to be able to have you on and talk to you about the game tomorrow night against our hometown Lakers and against the world champion Warriors. And so I just wanted to thank you first and just let people know it's super cool that you're on here and you're an approachable guy, and I really appreciate you. And if you guys don't already, you absolutely should follow Tim at Warriors Vox, VOX, Warriors Vox. So, I wanted to start off by just asking you, and look, I'm not going to do the whole thing. We're like, oh, remember the last time the Lakers and the Warriors? The Warriors are the world champs, and much respect, and that's all we need to say about that. You guys are a fantastic franchise. When you guys come down to play this young, emerging team, what's sort of the mindset, do you think, for the team? How do you see it?
Well, I think the Warriors right now, especially with what happened the other night against Sacramento, I think they have to first of all worry about themselves and second of all get healthy. You know, they didn't have Steph Curry, they didn't have Kevin Durant last night, and you know, when you take guys who won 3 MVPs and 1 Finals MVP and roughly 50 points and whatever off, you're gonna have a drop. Now, I still think the Warriors should have won that game. You know, they didn't execute the way they wanted to. I think it's really more about them right now than it is about anybody else, because what happens with the Warriors right now, and I'm sure Laker fans remember this from the Kobe and Shaq days, and even before that, if you have older fans who are tuning in to the podcast, that when you're the champ, you get everybody's A game. So there's no night where you can kind of just, very few nights where you can just kind of cruise, because everybody's coming at you at least for a while. And so that part of it, but I'm sure they're intrigued to see. I'm intrigued to see Kuzma. I want to see what he looks like up close, because I've seen him on TV and he looks fine. He looks like maybe one of the, the steals of last year's draft. And we know, that they're going to be ready, coached by Luke Walton. We know Luke and what he's all about, the time he spent with the Warriors. Not a lot of time, but man, he was impressive. So to see, how this team sort of fits together now with Ingram and Ball and Lopez and those guys, to see what it's going to be like. I'm intrigued by the matchup, but as far as the team itself goes, I think they're kind of more concerned about the kind of level they want to be at and who's going to be able to play. You do have a unique perspective. You've watched a young team develop. I remember when we weren't sure what Curry was going to be. I was living in the North Bay at the time. And, we knew he was good, but wow, gosh, he really, really got good. When someone like Luke Walton has seen that kind of emergence, what does he bring to the table with the rookies, with the young second-year players that maybe we're not seeing because we haven't seen a team like the Warriors graduate up? What are we missing that maybe we need to understand about Luke Walton's process? Well, there's 2 things about Luke that I think that he can relate to the young guys right away. One is he played with Kobe and he coached Curry. So, and I'm not trying to compare the two, but what I'm saying is, as you pointed out, when Curry first got to the Warriors, he was not the player he is today. So how did he get there? He got there through drive. How did Kobe Bryant become the player he was? He got there through his drive and his will. And for as nice a guy as Steph Curry is, and as, you know, he looks like the kid next door. He's the kind of kid that, you know, ring the doorbell and you hope he's there to date your daughter, you know, that kind of thing. But so he's got the boy next door look, but inside he's got a little bit of that killer instinct too. And he wants to cut your heart out. Now, Kobe at times was probably with a big blade or a sledgehammer. Steph's kind of more of a stiletto guy, but they both want to do the same thing. And so they both have drive. So number one, he can relate and tell these guys about how hard he sees those, you know, superstars work in the past and how hard you need to work to get to that level and maintain that level. Okay, and number two, Luke is a natural. He was born to coach, and as good a player he is, and any player that has any career in this league, if you get to this league, you're a great player, and even if you only do one thing well, you're still great at it because it's hard to get here. It's hard to get to the NBA and stay. And so what I saw Luke in his first year with the Warriors, watching him in practice and his attention to detail and the minutia about it, just talking about angles and where you have to place your foot and all these little things. I mean, he was just born to coach, and I think they're going to be fine with him at the realm. He's going to relate to them fine and communicate them. I think that's the one thing he took away from Steve Kerr, and is that Steve is one of the great communicators of all time. And I think Luke has tried to bring that to the Lakers.
One of our young guys, Brandon Ingram, there's a lot of comparison between him and Kevin Durant body type and their game a little bit. And as unfair as that can be to someone as young as Brandon, as someone as established, as the big fella, we're trying to temper that. Also, there's the expectations that maybe he'll be the next James Worthy. Taking those things aside, what do you see with Brandon Ingram? What kind of player do you envision him growing into over the next 3 or 4 years?
Yeah, first thing I would tell people is don't be worried about the body size. We've seen skinny guys play in the league for a long time. Kevin Durant has a skinny, body when compared to the rest of the NBA. James Worthy was, he wasn't as skinny as say Brandon Ingram, but he was skinny. And then Tayshaun Prince,
right?
Look at what he did for his career. So that would be one thing. I see a guy that really understands the game, and he understands, how to get from point A to point B. And so I see a player that has the upside that experience, the refinement of his game will give him. I think, he's never going to overpower people, but I think because of his understanding of the angles of the game and the flow of the game, I think he's going to be just fine because he's going to be able to efficiently get from one spot to another. And I think not every player has that instinct, but I see that instinct with him.
One of the things we're trying to figure out with this young squad that we have is what roles do these guys play? And so we see Luke rotating things and from my vantage point, I'm trying to be understanding and patient. And you see maybe him trying to find a closer for the fourth quarter. I mean, last night the Clippers game was in hand, but if you don't have that guy, you don't have that Curry, that instinct, that Mamba instinct to go out and close out a game. How much can the Lakers look internally for these role players if things kind of continue to not pan out necessarily? Is it time for us, the season's young, but is it time to start thinking, gosh, maybe it's just not these guys. Maybe it's not going to be Corey Brewer, or maybe it's not going to be Tyler Ennis, or whoever it's going to be. In terms of role players, what do you see as an outsider for the Lakers?
Yeah, well, I haven't seen them as much as I probably should have at this point, but I will say this. I think if you're looking at the Lakers right now, I think patience is a very big word because it takes teams years to develop that killer instinct that you're talking about. Case in point, with the Warriors, they had a year where, everybody was banged up, and then, Mark Jackson coaches a team that would, got to the lottery, retained their 7th pick, and then in one draft, they got Harrison Barnes, Festus Ezeli and Draymond Green. So that can happen. That kind of a transformation can happen. And so what I'm seeing with the Lakers is that they're very young, and that the players they need to be those closers are very young. And it's going to take a year or so to develop that ability. Learning how to win a game is a hard thing. It's a real hard thing in the NBA, and I know the great teams make it look easy. I know at times the Warriors have made it look easy with their point differential the last few years, but it's a hard thing, and especially when people are coming at you. And I think that's going to sort itself out over time. I think as far as their role players go, I think they've got some good veterans there, and again, I think this is the year where I see the Lakers trying to find out what they have, who they want to keep, and where they want to go next. And, they're a franchise that has been a marquee franchise for years. It's kind of fallen off the wayside here the last few years, but they still had that name in their history. And so, unlike, say, a team in another market, one of the smaller markets in the league, they're going to be able to attract a free agent. And that's also going to help, if you're looking to find someone to close games and so on and so forth.
You've seen the Chris Mullin, Tim Hardaway Warriors that were just right there. They kept trying to find that big man. Sean Vanderveer wasn't it? Vic Alexander, all of these guys trying to quite get over the hump, and they never quite got to that championship caliber where they were firmly in control of their own destiny. They were a dangerous team to anybody that played them, but never quite got there. This version of the Warriors got there, and then they've improved by bringing in Durant, that kind of thing. Do you think, looking at the Lakers and how they're constructed now, is this a team where you have to bring in outside help, or do you think that with the players that you've seen, do you see something here that resembles the Warriors from, say, 5-6 years ago as they were about to emerge?
Well, I see a team that has young pieces like Ingram and Kuzma and Ball, and that has young talent that they can nurture. They have veteran role players. You remember when the Warriors were just starting out, they had guys like Carl Landry and Jarrett Jack. Those were very important players to that team, because those were guys who were veterans, understood their roles, accepted their roles coming off the bench. Jarrett Jack, for a year or so, was the guy the Warriors were going to in the fourth quarter because he was so good at it. And then Carl Landry could come off the bench and give you points. So I kind of see them where the Warriors were maybe about 4 or 5 years ago. But I will say this, that the Warriors had one thing in their hip pocket. Well, there's two things. One thing, if you compare the Warriors now to the run teams, one thing that they have now is defense. They're one of the best defensive teams in the league, and they have been the last 4 or 5 years. And it's something that the average fan doesn't look at, because all they see is the splash. They don't see the grind part of it on the other end, and that's why they've been so good. That's why they're a championship team, is they combine this terrifying offense with a grinder defense mentality. And so that's number one. But number two, also too, the difference though, I would be a little cautionary if I was a Laker fan in comparing them to the Warriors 4 or 5 years ago, because the Warriors had these two guards, and they're special, and they're going to go down, in my estimation, as the best shooting backcourt in NBA history. And when you have that in your back pocket going into every game, that's something that cannot be, overestimated. It's an amazing thing to have those guys there, and when they get it going, when they start to move the ball and they get open shots, and you're looking around and how can Steph Curry, when they're moving without the ball, how can Curry get that wide open? How can Klay Thompson get that wide open? The pressure they put on the defense, that's the difference. And I don't see that with this Laker team yet. Now, maybe, like I said, as the year goes on, maybe they'll get some way of putting that kind of offensive fear into somebody, and maybe they'll acquire that in the future. And certainly not do it the same way the Warriors do it, but I don't see that just yet.
You talk about your guys' backcourt and how powerful it was, but it does take time for these guys to sort of turn the corner. Steph's always been able to shoot. His numbers were great early on, but he wasn't that complete player. One of the things that I'm cautioning people, and it's just, you have to let Ball and Kuzma, let the game come to them a little bit. They're going to be fine. The speed of the game, that rhythm. Ball can rebound. He has that skill. He's developed it at the elite level already. His ability to create a break off of that's fantastic. But the whole game, when do you start? I mean, he's 20 years old. Kuzma's not, I mean, these guys are young. What's a reasonable time frame for us to say these guys are learning, they're producing? I mean, if you compare 20-year-old dudes in the NBA, Ball is having a fine season. He's doing okay, and it's so early.
I think that's a great sign. I think the one thing that really translates from college to pro is rebounding. I think that if you can rebound in any game, you can rebound just about anywhere. But I think it takes these guys probably about 3 years to really get to where they want to go. And I say that because they're younger. You know, when Jerry West and Gail Goodrich were coming out of college, they were ready. They had played 4 years. Jerry West had played in the Olympics. He had played in international competition. He was ready for the NBA, right away. Where some players it takes time and then get to the right spot. I was reminded recently, Jimmy Butler, as good a player as he is right now, when he was a rookie, he averaged 2 points a game. Now, part of that was that the coach he was playing for the time is not a big guy on rookies. He doesn't like, he doesn't let guys play through a lot of mistakes because he wants them to learn and practice, and that's great. But so I think in today's NBA game, we have to all be a little more patient. We have to let guys grow organically, and I think it takes about 3 years. But the thing with Ball is that, and Steph Curry and Kevin Durant were saying this today, they were saying, hey, just give him time. Let him, you're trying to make him into something he's not yet. And I think that's the thing. The fact that he has a great floor game, bodes well for the future. And the Warriors have already seen Ben Simmons twice, and that kid can really play. And if Ball is anything like, close to what Ben Simmons can be right now, then he's going to be just fine.
Yeah, I agree that he's in a spot where right now he's very close, and as this game gets closer to him and he finds those spots on the floor, that ability to rebound, that is so special. I remember when Kevin Garnett first came up, he felt really bad because he wasn't producing great, and it took someone like Kevin McHale to say, hey man, relax. You've got time. And it took him about 3 or 4 years to really get the rhythm down where he was grabbing double-digit boards every night, scoring 20-plus games. And then it was a good 10-year-long stretch where he was a dominant player in the league, and look out. So we do have to give these guys some time to develop that killer instinct that's there that makes you want to win games. This is kind of the spot we're at right now with the Lakers, where any kind of break last night and the Clippers lose to the Lakers. Heck, the Clippers just barely beat them last time. This team could be a 500 team, and the point differentials is essentially 3 points. So a few extra 3-pointers, and all of a sudden it's a huge swing, a few extra free throws. So the difference isn't much, and as these young guys emerge, I could see the point differential starting to turn in their favor. But is that a good thing, Tim? Is it more important to learn the roles, to get that tenacity on defense that we have to have, not at the expense of wins, but a higher priority placed on those skills and those roles as opposed to just going for the win?
I think it's a delicate balance for any coach. And Luke's got veterans there. Do I develop my young guys in this tight game, or do I let my veterans, do something to help us win the game? That's a tight balance you gotta run. Everybody, every fan wants their team to rebuild while winning. Sometimes that's hard to do. And, but I think, again, I think because of the high profile rookie on the Lakers squad has a relative who is close to him, who is by spouting off platitudes can sometimes add extra pressure to this. I think we're kind of pushing the player and the team a little bit farther ahead than maybe where they should be. And I think what they did last year, especially maneuvering to get Kuzma, I thought that was they did well. They did really well. And so I think again, I go back to patience. I think patience is the word you got to use, because it's a team that's finding out, how it fits together, who's going to fit as this team grows, and to develop their young players. So it's a real tough and interesting dynamic, and it may take a year or so to see where these young guys are, and again, how, what spots, what places can they put these guys in situations to help them succeed. And that's the other part, that they're learning on the fly as to, Kuzma and Ball and what they like to do, where they can do it, and where's the best place for them to be in a situation with a game on the line.
One last question, and I want to make sure that we temper our homerism here in LA. You've been around this game forever. You've seen the Kings, you've seen the Warriors almost do it, be terrible, come back and be championship caliber. You've seen throughout the league the legends come back and try to emulate their own success. Michael Jordan has a team. Larry Bird has run a team. Kevin McHale, Isaiah. We've got Magic back now. And in our hearts, we're passionate and we love Magic. Who doesn't love Magic? But are we too bullish on Magic's success, given the track record of the other elite great players? Is there something that Magic has that maybe the other players don't have? And we're not trying to disparage Magic, but are our expectations of Magic too high, unfair, unrealistic?
No, because I think Magic is, he's one thing that the other guys are not. He's a great businessman. Okay? And part about being a great businessman is that you have to be somewhat of a salesman to do that. So down the road, when the sales pitch is going to go out to certain, draft picks and players, and when they're interviewing players for the draft next year, talking to potential free agents in years to come, having that kind of a guy is going to help. That's going to help. But again, I think what, everybody was hoping that, I think here, and I don't know for that for sure, that maybe like the flick of a light switch, that things were going to be right back to where they were in 2002. And if you remember, that took time as well. They had to trade for Kobe because he only wanted to play in LA, and they had to get Shaq and Jerry West, was one of the great free agent signings in NBA history, and that whole process took some time, and so I think that's the thing that I would say is that I think the expectations of any franchise are what the fans expect them to be. I remember when I was with the Warriors, and I first started with the Warriors, and Run TMC was done, and they got into this series of coaches, and now we're in the late 90s, early 2000s, and I kept getting emails from fans and letters from fans, and they were all very angry, and they were passionate, but and at first I thought, God, these guys are really upset, and then it occurred to me that they cared. They took the time to write a letter, to send an email, and they cared about the franchise. It wasn't that they just said, the heck with them, they stink. They said, no, I don't want you guys to stink. You guys got to fix this. And here's what you need to tell the coach and the general manager and all that. You know how fans can be. And then when I got that realization sunk into my brain, I thought, I want to stay here, because when this thing turns around, this is going to be a great place to work, because these fans love this team and they're passionate. And so I think with the Laker fans, it's the same thing. I think they love their team and they're passionate about it. But I think they're also a little impatient because, like Warrior fans are getting now, they got spoiled. They got spoiled with, constantly being, toward the top, constantly being, at the, they went from the Magic decade and then a little bit of a lull period, then right in the, late 90s into the 2000s, they rode Kobe Bryant all the way through last year, and so I think that, you just gotta look at it realistically and say, okay, step back for a second, be a little patient, look at the pieces that are there, and say, okay, well, they looks like they had a very good draft, and now they've got some very workable role players and professionals around those guys. Now let's see how they build through the year, how they grow through the year, what kind of progress the young players have in February and March as opposed to October and November. And then if you can get into the playoff hunt, and that's great. Which is I always think that people go, why do you want to make the playoffs? You can get another lottery pick, but again, if you have like young players, getting them the taste of that playoff thing, I think that's really important. And so I think they're on the right track. I'm not a basketball exec. I'm just a broadcaster, but I've been around enough. I think they're on the right track. I love their head coach. I think that was a great hire, and hopefully they don't get too good, because I'm actually enjoying the run the Warriors are on now. So
I'm going to push back on the I'm just a broadcaster. You are also a Hall of Famer at Utica College, your alma mater. You are a native Californian. We always love that. You are the longtime voice of the Warriors, and someone that I really appreciate. And I know that not only are you great at your job, and I love hearing you call games, but you're also a stand-up guy, and that to me is even more important. So I thank you very much for your time. You've done just such a fantastic job, and I know that Lakers fans will appreciate your candor. And man, just really, seriously, thank you very much.
No problem. It was my pleasure, Pete, and look forward to I'm looking forward to the game. I think it's gonna be fun.
Wow, that was awesome. Thank you so much to Tim Roye from the Warriors for sharing that vital information and that insight. Like I said before, it should be a great game on Wednesday night between the Warriors and the Lakers. So I'm looking forward to that matchup. I'm definitely looking forward to the matchup. It should be a great one. And looking ahead to the Lakers' schedule after the Warriors, they look to play the Nuggets on the road on Saturday. And the last time we all know the Lakers played the Nuggets, Lonzo had a triple-double. So we'll see what happens this time in the Mile High City against the Lakers. And then they return home on Sunday night to play Chris Paul and Fear the Beard, James Harden, and the Houston Rockets on Sunday night. Then they have a very, very interesting week ahead as they head out on the road to the East Coast to face the Sixers, the Knicks, and LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers to round it out. So the Lakers have a tough road ahead. And it's not going to be easy, the travel time, the teams that they're facing, because the Sixers are a team that is definitely have trusted the process, and they're playing like it. Ben Simmons, Joel Embiid, Covington, those are some bad boys. So the Lakers are definitely going to have their hands full with that. You got the Knicks and Porzingis, and then, like I said, you have LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, Tristan Thompson, and the Cleveland Cavaliers to round it out. So it's going to be an interesting road trip. This is a road trip that's going to be very, very difficult, very tough to accomplish some wins. So they're going to have to definitely dig deep and play some top-notch Laker basketball. All right? So thank you so much for tuning into the show. Make sure you hit us up on Twitter at Lakers Reign Pod. Also on Instagram. You can catch me on Instagram and Twitter at Nick Hamilton LA. Thank you so much for tuning in to the show. Until next time, make it rain, purple and gold. For Lakers Reign Podcast, I'm your host, Nick Hamilton. Till next time, keep it sharp.
You've been listening to Lakers Reign. Thanks to the Los Angeles Lakers. Executive producer Pete Turner. Producer John Leon Guerrero. Musical director DJ Severe. And your host, Nick Hamilton. Intro track On the Ball by Bryce Vine. We'll see you next time on Lakers Reign.